Content warning. This episode discusses deportation, detention, and alleged human rights violations. April 2025. A federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. Judge James Boasberg, the Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, issues an order. Stop. Turn the plane around. Do not deport these individuals to El Salvador until we can review the case. The plane doesn't turn around. The deportation proceeds. And Judge Boasberg responds with two words that echo through American legal history: criminal contempt. He found probable cause that the Trump administration had committed criminal contempt of court, the willful defiance of a federal judge's direct order. I'm Sarah, and this is Ethos Trek. Today we're examining what happens when the executive branch treats court orders as suggestions. This is episode 2 of the series Constitutional Crisis, when courts become optional. Contempt, defiance, and the collapse of judicial authority. Everyone remember Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a Maryland resident. He's lived in the United States for years. He had a family here, a life here. In March 2025, ICE detained Garcia. The administration invoked a 1798 wartime law called the Alien Enemies Act, a law designed for wartime, never before used this way, and put him on a deportation flight to El Salvador. His lawyers filed an emergency motion. A federal judge issued an order. Stop! This man has legal rights. Let us review. It didn't turn around. Kilmar Abrego Garcia was delivered to El Salvador's mega prison system, the same system that has drawn international condemnation for human rights abuses. Let's talk about the Maryland civil case. We'll start with the deportation attempts. The Trump administration has made repeated attempts to deport Abrego Garcia to various African countries: Uganda, Eswatini, Ghana, Liberia, after a 2019 court order barred his removal to his native El Salvador due to gang threats. And there's an injunction. A U.S. district judge in Maryland, Paula Zinnes, has an existing injunction that temporarily blocks his removal. A recent hearing was held on November 20th, 2025, where the government sought to lift this order. The judge is currently weighing whether the government can legally continue detaining or deporting him after discovering that his 2019 case never included a formal removal order. His asylum bid was denied and appealed. An immigration judge denied Abrego Garcia's asylum application in October of 2025, ruling it was filed after a 90-day deadline. But his attorneys can appeal the decision to the Board of Immigration Appeals. And the Costa Rican offer. A top Costa Rican official stated in November 2025 that their offer to accept Abrego Garcia for humanitarian reasons remains, contradicting U.S. government officials' claims that it was not even an option. Then there's the Tennessee criminal case for human smuggling. In an attempt to save face and legitimize their illegal arrest of Garcia, the federal government claimed Garcia had federal human smuggling charges related to a 2022 traffic stop. He was returned to the U.S. in June of 2025 to face these charges after being wrongfully deported to an El Salvadoran prison in March of 2025. But there's a vindictive prosecution motion. His attorneys have filed a motion to dismiss the charges, arguing they are, quote, selective or vindictive prosecution, unquote, designed to punish him for challenging the administration's actions. A hearing on this motion is scheduled for December 8th, 2025. The trial date for the human smuggling case is set to begin on January 27th, 2027. But there's an official misconduct issue. A federal judge has criticized top Trump administration officials for making prejudicial public statements about the case, potentially threatening Abrego Garcia's right to a fair trial. Abrego Garcia is currently out of criminal custody and staying with his brother in Maryland, though he remains under federal supervision and subject to potential ICE detention at any time, pending the outcome of various court rulings. The ongoing legal situation has become a major flashpoint in the debate over Trump-era immigration policies. The judge's response? Judge Boasberg held an emergency hearing. He questioned government lawyers about what happened, and what he found disturbed him enough to issue a formal finding. Let me read his words directly. Quote, "The government's actions demonstrate willful disregard for the court's authority and the rule of law. The Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders," unquote. He found probable cause for criminal contempt, meaning he believed there was sufficient evidence that the administration had willfully, knowingly, violated a court order. November 2025, the contempt was revived. On November 20th, 2025, the same day Judge Cobb ruled that the D.C. National Guard deployment was illegal, Judge Boasberg announced he was reviving contempt proceedings against the administration. Why? Because the administration still hadn't complied. The court order to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return had been ignored for months. This is what ongoing defiance looks like. Not a one-time mistake, a pattern. The whistleblower. In May 2025, a former Department of Justice lawyer came forward with an explosive allegation. According to this whistleblower, Emil Bove, the then senior DOJ official, instructed colleagues that court orders could be treated as optional, that compliance was discretionary. Let me be clear about what this means. If true, a senior Justice Department official told lawyers whose job it is to uphold the law that they could ignore judges. The whistleblower's complaint was filed with the DOJ Inspector General. The administration has not publicly responded to the substance of these allegations. And Emil Bove? He's since been appointed to the Federal Appeals Court. Why does this matter? The entire American legal system rests on a simple premise. Court orders must be obeyed. When Richard Nixon was ordered to turn over the Watergate tapes, he complied. When the Supreme Court ordered school desegregation, it was enforced, sometimes with federal troops. Courts don't have armies. They have authority. That authority depends on the understanding that when a judge rules, the executive branch complies. If that understanding breaks down, if compliance becomes optional, then judicial review becomes theater. The Constitution becomes advisory, and power concentrates in whoever controls the enforcement mechanisms. There is a pattern of defiance. The Abrego Garcia case isn't isolated. Let me walk you through the pattern. The deportation flights. Multiple judges have issued orders halting deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act. In several documented cases, flights proceeded anyway. The administration has argued that once a plane is in the air, courts lose jurisdiction, an argument judges have rejected. Funding freezes. As we'll discuss in Episode 3, courts have blocked the administration's attempts to freeze congressionally appropriated funds. Agencies continued withholding money even after court orders required release. DOJ access. Courts have blocked DOJ officials from accessing sensitive databases. Evidence suggests access continued in some cases even after judicial blocks. We'll cover this a little bit more in Episode 4. National Guard deployments. As we discussed in Episode 1 of this series, courts have ruled these deployments illegal. The deployments continue, and more troops are being added. This isn't about one case or one issue. It's about an executive branch that has decided judicial rulings are obstacles to be managed, not mandates to be followed. Now, let's be precise about what laws govern contempt of court. Criminal contempt, 18 U.S.C. subsection 401. Federal courts have inherent power to punish contempt of their authority. Criminal contempt is willful disobedience of a court order. It's a crime. It can result in fines and imprisonment. When Judge Boasberg found probable cause for criminal contempt, he was saying there's enough evidence to believe a crime was committed. Civil contempt. Civil contempt is used to coerce compliance. Courts can impose escalating fines until a party obeys. The idea is that you hold the keys to your own release. Comply with the order, and the penalties stop. But what happens when the party in contempt controls the enforcement mechanisms? When the executive branch ignores a court? Who makes them comply? There's also a constitutional structure. The Constitution separates powers for a reason. Article 3 establishes the judicial branch. Article 2 requires the president to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, unquote. That includes court orders. When the executive ignores the judiciary, it doesn't just break a rule. It breaks the structure that keeps any one branch from becoming all-powerful. Here are some questions to think about. 1. What enforcement mechanisms exist when the executive branch defies court orders? Historically, courts have relied on the executive to enforce their rulings. What happens when the executive is the one defying? 2. If officials can ignore court orders without personal consequence, what's the incentive to comply? Criminal contempt requires prosecution. Who prosecutes the executive officials when the DOJ is part of the executive branch? 3. What's the human cost? Sarah Beckstrom, the National Guard member who died as a result of the shooting while serving in D.C. on illegal orders. A court ruling the administration ignored and defied. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who sat in deplorable conditions in El Salvador and now endures a legal nightmare because of defiance. Those are just two examples. How do we weigh institutional questions against individual lives? 4. Does speed create immunity? The administration argues that acting quickly before courts can rule is legitimate. Does the Constitution protect rights only for those who can get to a courthouse fast enough? 5. What role does Congress have? Congress has impeachment power. It has oversight authority. It controls funding. Why isn't Congress using these tools? Could it be Mike Johnson has surrendered his obligations to the executive branch? What can you do? Well, 1, demand congressional oversight. Call the Capitol switchboard. We all know the number by now. Say it with me. Area code 202-224-3121. Ask your representatives, what hearings are being held on executive defiance of court orders? What accountability measures are being considered? Remember, even if you don't get a response, representatives keep track of what concerns constituents call about. They want to keep their cushy jobs. 2, support legal defense organizations. Groups like the ACLU, National Immigration Law Center, Democracy Forward, even Democracy Docket. I'll put an @ to their channel in the description box below. These organizations are fighting these cases. They need resources to keep going. 3, follow the Abrego Garcia case. His case is ongoing. Public attention matters. When people are watching, institutions behave differently. 4, educate your community. Share this information. Most people don't know a federal judge found probable cause for criminal contempt. This should be front-page news. Make it so. 5, support whistleblowers. The DOJ lawyer who came forward took enormous risk. Organizations like the Government Accountability Project protect people who expose wrongdoing. Here's what we know. A federal judge found probable cause for criminal contempt of court against the Trump administration. A Maryland resident was sent to a foreign prison despite orders not to remove him. A whistleblower alleges DOJ officials were told to treat court orders as optional. And contempt proceedings have been revived because defiance continues. The founders created 3 branches of government because they understood that concentrated power corrupts. The judicial branch exists to check the executive. But that check only works if the executive respects judicial authority. When courts become optional, we don't have a constitutional government anymore. We have something else entirely. In Episode 3, we follow the money. The Constitution gives Congress the power of the purse, the sole authority to decide how federal money is spent. But what happens when the executive branch freezes funds Congress appropriated, defies court orders to release them, and dismantles entire agencies? Who controls the purse is next. I'm Sarah. This is Ethos Trek. Stay informed, stay engaged, stay constitutional. Thank you for listening to Ethos Trek. If you like this content, please poke that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing. Subscribing is free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Leave a comment. If you don't feel like saying anything Specific? Drop an emoji. If there is someone you think would enjoy this content, please share. If you would like either the policy versus politics checklist or the action booklet from the 31 pages video, please drop me an email. The address will be in the description box below. If you're watching this on YouTube, these are relevant videos the algorithm thought you might enjoy.